Yes. Our friends really wanted to go. My friend Susan was just absolutely stir crazy.
Oh, but I've had lovely.
And she had to go and like a couple of months ahead. And we said, well, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. And we were really on the fence about it. But we knew that David needed dental work. And then I went to the dentist and I had a broken tooth, a split tooth. And the dentist said, it's going to split down the middle and you're going to have a root canal and a crown and all of that. And so I said, okay. And we got a referral to a dentist from someone who lives there. And if any of you go to San Miguel de Allende, which is in the central part of Mexico, and with a need for dental work, I have the perfect dentista. And I saw my regular dentist today, Nelson. He looked at it, he said, it looks great. I'm so happy you did it. It takes a lot of work. How fast did it get done? Basically a week.
Wow.
2 sessions.
Yeah.
So,
That's great.
anyway, yeah.
That's right, you have to wait for the temporary.
Now I've had a whole bunch of actually down in San
My voice changed, right?
a great spot. There's a lot of medical refugees there.
Yeah, Katie, have you heard anything from Louise? Do you know if she's?
I wasn't really checking in very frequently, and so I sort of see it in bunches, but I hadn't seen anything from Louise. No.
For a while, right? Now that we're thinking about it. Okay.
Hey, maybe I should, let me see if I can call her, if I have her
And
number.
otherwise it's Gail and Vicky, and we know where they are, right? 1, 2.
Right. Kim had a form and said she might be late or not at all.
Sure. And we know Pat just ordered the book.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't have Louise's number, so I can't call her.
Okay.
I don't know if I have it.
Does, I'll be happy to do it.
I'm looking.
On the subject of our group, are we interested in bringing on anyone else? Or
Do you have a contestant?
Potentially, but she's not an environmental forum person. So
Well, fix that first. We have Louise's number. Can you?
No.
Oh,
I only have her
Email.
email.
I only have her email also.
Looks like
Nancy did.
Nancy's
Nancy's on it.
probably.
Nancy's on it.
And it looks like she posted 5 days ago on Facebook.
Oh, look
Oh,
at you. Wow.
That's good to know.
Katie, while we're waiting, is it your organization, SEI, that is doing the California State University system?
That's SEI, and somebody posted it in the channel on our Slack. Yesterday it came out or 2 days ago. And
What are you doing? Wait. What are you?
It's in the news. In the news.
Well, and Science said, well, it's not quite accurate, but not bad. It's hard really to quantify. And we have so many different programs and they're kind of similar and they start and they stop and something new comes along, but we're just going kind of gangbusters right now. It's in the IJ, it says SEI is promoting sustainability classwork in the CSU system. And there's an article.
Yeah, I
about
have
it.
the article here. It's Nonprofit Forges College Network on Climate Issue.
Oh, great. I missed that. So congratulations.
Thank you. I've got the link. I can drop it in the chat if you're interested. Yeah, we do a lot of stuff along those lines, basically.
That's great. Hey guys, I just talked to Louise. She thought it was the 16th and she's not able to join us.
Oh,
But she's okay.
Yeah, she's fine. Yeah. She just
Good.
has, I guess she's busy.
Well,
And I'm
good.
just looking where she thought it was the 16th.
Well,
Hey, let's
it
start
was in your-
talking about, let's talk
No,
about this.
guys, I screwed up.
yeah.
Nobody, it said, I said Wednesday, November 16th, which isn't even a
And then later-
Wednesday.
Oh,
And then later in the email, you said the 10th, and I thought another email came around from someone that said
Correcting that.
exactly the 10th, but anyway.
Boy, I'll call her back and apologize. It was, yeah, I said by both dates in it. Damn. I'll tell you, I screw up dates more often than I should.
that's okay.
Fun to do this stuff.
It happens.
Or have somebody check, are my days and dates right?
Nancy, I'm just grateful that you take this on. So
Yeah,
thank you.
me too.
Thank you. So let's talk about ministry, my God.
Yeah,
I'm really eager. I'm so happy to see you all. We had a bit of a social gathering last month. But I am really eager to have a great conversation about this book, which I'm sure was challenging for some of you, if not all of you. It was challenging for me. But I felt very rewarding. So Nancy, I know you have something to say, but I just wanted to put.
oh. Well, I sent you all the email saying, think about key takeaways from the book beyond the book itself, okay, and what thoughts are going through your mind, because this book really impacted me. I listened to the audio, which I really enjoyed because there are a lot of characters and they have different accents. So in the audio, it really came across. And it's interesting because some other things that I've been reading and hearing and doing have all kind of meshed together with this.
Right.
So my key takeaways are, I don't know, why don't we let somebody else go first, or do you want me to go first?
Well, I also want to make sure, I'd like to lay out that. Hope that we can talk a little bit about the literary quality of this book.
Yeah.
I can tell you a little bit about the author if you wish. I'd like to talk about the characters in the book and how they support or not the plot, the process, the precision of the action, and then there's the application to where we are here today in Point Reyes and Central Marin and Southern Marin and in the region and the state and the county and the world, all of that. Yeah.
Could we start with that?
Yeah.
That to me is like very interested to hear about how we think that the ideas in the book are relevant, not relevant.
Yeah.
And then
I agree with that. That's why I jumped in, Nancy. So
Yeah,
forgive me for.
Oh, thank you.
thanks.
Yeah. So would you like to start, Heather? Since you
No.
made-
No. I had a really hard time with the book. I made it almost halfway. So in true confession,
really? Okay.
I made it
So
almost
you
halfway.
didn't get to the good part. So
No.
it would be, no, did anybody finish the book beside me and Nancy?
I didn't.
Yay, Mary. Yay, Mary. Okay. So
No,
maybe
I don't. I want to hear, Kiki, I feel like you are the most grounded in this.
Yeah.
Okay.
I hadn't even thought about the issues you just ticked off, so I go for it, please.
Okay, well, briefly, Kim Stanley Robinson is one of the most respected, if not the most respected living science fiction writers. There's a new category called cli-fi, climate fiction, as opposed to sci-fi, science fiction. He has a PhD. He has taught writing. He has won every award that is given for science fiction. And his genre is very much in the realm of combining science excuse me, politics and the plausible future. He has some other books that were his best known before this book, but this book has received a tremendous amount of attention and praise. There are a number of themes that run through it that have been in our world, David's and mine, in a pretty intense way. And we've also shared them with Nancy and Bruce in terms of modern monetary theory. If you're familiar with that at all, which and David may jump in. I mean, I don't know how you feel about this. Is it okay to have him sitting next to me, not looking at him? And he may have. Modern monetary theory says a government that has its own currency, its own sovereign currency, can make as much money as it wants to, as long as the society can absorb it. It's not about inflation. It's not about all those other things that economists tear their hair out about. And there are a number of folks who have been involved with modern monetary theory who are working in the Biden administration. That is one of the reasons that we are pushing so hard for a large economic investment, because certainly there is room to absorb the money in our workforce and in our infrastructure and in all of the social services that have been so neglected. So that aside, Kim Stanley Robinson goes that way. He's known well as a writer who deals with the politics of science. He said that scientists should really be the ones who are running policy. And there's a lot more about him, but he's very well known, and I found him to be very, very readable. The structure of this book, as you all noticed, is unusual, and he was encouraged by his editor to explore this kind of structure. We have some narrative from a third person with Mary Murphy. We have her interactions with her staff. We have the notes that are taken at the meetings. We have interstitial insertions of carbon atoms and monetary theory and various things that occurred during the course of the book, that give context and kind of can ground us in his meaning in terms of the abstractions that he's putting forward. So that's background. And I would just say that for me, the character of Mary Murphy was critically important and central to the book, and her history as a diplomat and her manner. And what we learned at the very end, when she and Badim, her first lieutenant, kind of do the post-mortem in every possible way of what has happened that has gotten them to this point, that she was able to trust him. And so I think trust and character play very strongly in this book in an odd way, because there's so much other stuff going on. So we all know that the chapters that talk about different things that occur from can you imagine the refugee situation for 15 years or whatever that was? The floods in Los Angeles, I mean, how prescient is all of that? Of course, the opening chapter of the fires. I don't want to talk anymore, but I found the book to be very intelligently and skillfully presented and constructed. And I liked the characters, and I loved what they all did. So back to you.
But so for those of us who didn't, who got through some of it, and I was mostly struck by, wow, through the part I heard, it was like, I'm listening to COP26, I'm listening to ministry, I'm like, sounds about the same to me.
Exactly.
People are unhappy, nothing's happening, and maybe something happens in the last half of the book, but the characters are great, the story is great, but I'm like, what drove you to recommend this book for us? Is it just like putting a mirror up in front of us and saying, look, this is nobody's fixing anything? Is that?
Okay, so my last comment, and I really don't want to talk anymore after this.
Okay, sorry.
What happens in this book is that we get to see the movement on climate that we all have been yearning for at the highest levels, from local, regional, state, country, multinational governments, being forced to move to policy that is going to really move the needle. And there's some black ops that go on, and maybe you haven't gotten to that yet. But
the discussion is just starting, yeah.
In the book, it is identified that there's something like 200 people in the world who are not allowing the change to happen. So either we're going to confront them and pressure them to change their mind, or we're going to shoot them out of the sky. And it kind of reminds me of Silence Equals Death and Extinction Rebellion and Guy Fawkes Day, right? So what we see happening is the will of the people and the governments is forced to coalesce into taking action through the Ministry of the Future. At the end, there's an enormous meeting where 100 countries come together and all report on the different actions that they are taking, from the lowliest farmer to the national government, to reduce carbon. And I talked about modern monetary theory. If you haven't gotten to this point in the book, you'll find out that a carbon coin is created, and the carbon coin's value is the fossil fuels that are not burned.
Okay.
And the economic and banking mechanisms, and banking plays a huge role. The economic banking mechanisms that are brought to bear to make that a viable thing. So what you have in store for you, if you haven't gotten to this point yet, is this incredible recitation of wonderful things that are going on planet-wide to accomplish the goals that we have all been working for in our little, silos, if I may. Okay.
Thank you.
She did.
Uh-oh.
So
How far did you get?
I go ahead.
No, you cut out. I didn't know what your question was, Kiki, or who it was directed to.
Sorry, no, I know, Katie, you said that you had gotten about a quarter through, but I think Kate Powers may have gotten a little bit farther on.
I have about 15 hours left of listening. I expected to be driving alone up and back to my dad's, but now have my sister as my companion. And what struck me about the economics, because I think the economics are sort of such an influential force in decision making in our political system. And what to me is, the tragedy of the commons, where there's, well, you guys all know what the tragedy of the commons is, where there's something that we don't all feel the loss of as we take from it. But there's also the tragedy of the horizons, where we don't recognize the long-term consequences of our actions because we don't feel them. We don't recognize the long-term consequences on future generations because we're motivated by self-interest, and we don't have like an incentive, the same incentive to fix things maybe that younger generations do. And so I'm aware that the Black operations is targeting people to kill, and that these the rationale behind it is because those people are causing the death of many, many, many others through their actions, and not being able to. I didn't get to the end though. So I just, for me, I liked the way I saw him speak at the Planning and Conservation League. They have an annual meeting, and I thought it was really unusual that they would have the plenary speaker be a science fiction writer. But he was amazing, and he tied the whole day together. And he strikes me as a really part of the way he writes is that he seeks out the answers to his own questions. So as he was going down the path of how this could play out, or how he did a lot of research. He did a lot of research in banking and financial systems. He did a lot of research. He did research on, the carbon molecule. He did research on glaciers and drilling, and finding all that out. And as he was gathering all this information, he was putting it all together in this story that not only gave us that information, but tied it together in this story with these characters, like you said, that developed the characters. And the meaningfulness for me, personally, the way I started to feel about it, I felt the exact same thing as listening to the news about COP26 and then listening to the tape. I just felt like these are, we're going through the same thing, and seeing the kids' signs who are standing outside, I just felt like, and I think, I'm just steeped in conservation right now, and with MCL and other things. And I feel like conservation is looking at strategies to counter sort of the tragedies of the commons, or the tragedies of the horizon, is that you recognize, you try to counter the impulses for self-interest, or monetary motive incentives, or sort of our short-sightedness, and not seeing the bigger picture. But I didn't finish the book, and that's all, so that's where I am right now, is that it has been a really enjoyable, pleasurable experience for me to be listening to this when I have free time.
Yeah. Did you get to the part where they're talking about the half Earth?
No.
Where half the Earth is being set aside for animals and insects and birds and vegetation. Half Earth. I think this is an E.O. Wilson concept.
It is. Yeah. I'll have to.
So, and the wildlife corridors and the set aside on every continent.
Big time. Habitat restoration.
Coincidentally, I was listening to the radio while I was listening to this, and Richard Heinberg was on. I don't know what station I was on. This was last week, and he was talking about Half Earth.
Mhm. Yeah.
You have to repair the earth before you can.
Right.
Richard Heinberg is supposed to be speaking somewhere. I can't remember where.
Hmm.
Coming up soon.
You can find it on Post Carbon Institute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mary, I see your wheels, not your wheels. I see your thoughtfulness sparking.
Who's thoughtful?
Mary,
Oh, yeah. I would love to hear from Nancy first.
Oh, okay. I guess where this book took me, I thought the book was great. It was helpful to me in that I'm so frustrated and ready to just throw my hands up and say, there's just no way we're going to get out of this. Kind of like Frank felt. And in reading where this went, Kiki went away. I think this covered about what, 30 years? What was the time? What was the time span of this book? About 30 years or so?
no, not at all. Because when Mary started,
yeah,
it was the ministry started in 2025.
right.
We could only hope.
And it came out of the Paris Agreement.
Right. And Mary at the end is 69. And I think that or 60 something.
Yeah.
Just starting a relationship with this guy. And so I think the span is not 30 years, but a good 20 probably. Something like that.
Well, here's what I came up with, because this was trying to look how long this is going to take, because it's going to take a long time and it's probably not in our lifetimes. And there's just going to be a lot more, for me, frustration at what seems to be inaction, and takes a lot of time and little things to finally get traction. And I believe on a very high level, that's imperative to move this forward. I don't think we can solve this on our own, just as individuals. We can do our part, but the bigger picture of moving forward is going to take, like monetary changes. That carbon coin idea I thought was fascinating, where you are incentivizing big oil to not drill oil as opposed to punishing them with taxes for drilling oil. And I think people respond better to positive incentives rather than negative. Now I just lost where was I going with that? Yeah. The timeline. At some point in the book, for example, the women that were in the refugee camps, at one point she said 12 years, 14 years, 2 years. That was 28 years that she was in refugee camps. Frank was 44 when he died, but I wasn't able to, and I think he was in his 20s when the heat wave hit.
Right.
So
probably in the refugee camp before the origin of the book. But anyway.
It could be. But there's also a point in there where they refer to 2047 as in the past.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Exactly where that was. So anyway, what this all again reinforced for me is it's going to take a very long time, and that it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be pretty. And we are in the part where it's just, I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. I mean, it's kind of gloom and doom for me personally in my lifetime and us, but I still felt very optimistic at the end of the book, you guys have to get to the part where they have this conference that Kiki talks about. It's a 3-day conference. And the first day, they talk about all the countries all report in things that they've done. And he doesn't gloss over it. I mean, country after country after country lists the things that they've done. And the second day, they talk about the things that they haven't done and what needs to be done still. So it tells me that even at that point, there's still going to be a lot to do. I'm just looking at my notes here. But I also, what I came out of this for me is we're more resilient than we think. And it's when, unfortunately, maybe this is just human nature, but until we are really under the gun and we keep thinking we've been there with hurricanes and fires and such, you know, how bad does it have to get? Well, obviously it's got to get worse than it is already. Kind of parallel to this, I'm reading this book, oh, help me, Kiki, Splendid in the Vile, about
Oh, yeah.
Churchill's first year as prime minister in 1940, during which Germany takes over France, and now England is faced with the prospect of invasion, and the Blitz is going on. And the resilience of them to deal with that day-to-day bombing and somehow still hold on to their joy isn't the right word. I don't know what it is. Their lust for life, for things to get better, that we can do this. I mean, Churchill was amazing in getting people to just be positive about this horrible things happening. And just to kind of jump, this morning for Wednesday morning dialogue, the speaker that they had in was Katie, I can't remember what her last name is. She heads up the outreach for the San Francisco and Marin food banks. And she talked about the challenges that they've had, particularly with the pandemic and the amount of food that they're having to distribute. I don't know if any of you remember, but some years ago at the forum, we had Kate Sears talk about food issues in Marin. That was the first time I really heard that we have a lot of people here in Marin who don't have food. Well, today, as Katie talked about the amount of food that they had projected what they would need 15 years from now, with the pandemic, they hit that in 18 months. So they were faced with, we don't have a choice. We don't have 15 years. We've got to do things now. And they added warehouses and they added volunteers and the things that they accomplished just to address the needs during the pandemic is mind-boggling when she was telling us about it. But it again kind of said to me, you know, it's amazing what we can do when we have to do it. But unfortunately, it seems to have to come down to we have to do it. We have no choice. And I kind of see things like that with climate change. I don't know how bad things are going to have to get, but they're worse than it is now, unfortunately. And yet those of us who are here living that day to day, it's different than looking back on it in history. I'm only saying that because Bruce's dad would comment about or Phyllis actually said this the other day. Oh, I've lived in a great time. You know, life is good. Okay, Phyllis, in your lifetime, there was the Depression, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and you start to recount and McCarthyism and whatever all else. It wasn't a picnic, but when you're living it day to day, you just kind of adapt to that day to day. So I guess that's the other thing is resilience and adapting. We just do what we do. So that's kind of my take on it. And I really, if you haven't finished it, stick with it. It's long, but I found it well worth it.
Thank you.
Next.
I'm going to say one or two things because I haven't finished it, but drafting off of what Nancy said, what I'm coming to both politically and environmentally is not in my lifetime. So I think I've been somehow clinging to, oh, we're going to make the change in our lifetime. And in doing a bunch of, readings that we've been doing as sort of a whiteness group and learning about the history of slavery and critical race theory, God help us. It's very, very clear that it is audacious of us to imagine the world we're imagining as it pertains to race, that there just has never been this world we imagine where races are equal. And I realize that is audacious of us to imagine, and we're fighting towards it, but it's not going to happen in my lifetime. And that has, and the same thing with our climate and our environment, and that has helped me shift a little bit of my anxiety and frustration, because I think, coming through the forum, somehow I was like, oh, we've got to get this going. And now I understand, of course, that I'm one cog in a generational wheel but that shouldn't discourage me, because I just have to keep pushing as little as I can, pushing in the right direction. And that has eased some of my craziness and anxiety and I get so disheartened by the news coming out of COP, the news coming out of Virginia. But I just, that is no excuse to stop marching forward, because it's not in our lifetime, or it's not in my lifetime. And someone slapped my hand about that, and I'm like, no, this is good news for me.
Yeah.
This puts me in historical. It was sort of like when Kiki introduced me to deep adaptation. It was like, thank you. I just needed to know where on the continuum I'm supposed to be working. So that's,
but I hope that we can come around, and I promise not to talk till the end, but I would like to challenge some of your suppositions.
all right. Happy to, but that's just been, when you said not in our lifetimes, Nancy, I just wanted to say that's been my sort of like, it's been a gift to me. Deep adaptation and not my lifetime has been a gift to me.
I want to add to that, because I think I've gone the least in the book. I just finished the chapter where he talks about discounting the economics of discounting future generations. So I feel I'm still kind of, he's setting the table, or we're still taxing, and it's going to take off. But what you said, Heather, about having more perspective about what lays ahead. One thing, because I am enjoying the book, I just haven't had the time. It's not that I found it difficult to get through, and I'm listening to it. It's a really wonderful audiobook. But what I so appreciate, especially after hearing from all of you about what's to come in this book, and what has been so impressive already, just the breadth and the detail and the depth of and the fertility of his imagination and the world he's building. And it seems so possible, scientifically based and elsewhere, but that he has created a vision of what might happen. And it's also just so encouraging that this book is getting so much attention, because it's a lot easier to kind of forge a path if there's some ideas about what that path might look like. And that's just all I wanted to say.
Do you guys remember Ken White? We had him as a speaker also for the forum some time ago. He was from Post Carbon Institute. He worked with Richard Heinberg. This
Was he the microgrid guy?
No, that
Okay.
was Peter Asmus. Anyway, Ken is no longer with Post Carbon, blah, blah, blah. but he's reading this book also right now. And we're having dinner next week, and I'm really curious to hear what his take is on this book. Particularly with his association with Post Carbon and what their vision is and such. So I'm surprised the people I've talked to have said, "Oh yeah, I'm reading that too."
Mary,
Well, I listened to it, which was good because I found some chapters to be quite didactic, some chapters to be boring. And so it was okay if I went to sleep and missed a little bit and woke up and went forward. And Heather would ask me every day or so, well, what do you think? And some days I would say, oh, well, this is, it's good. And some days I would say, this is one of the stupidest things I've ever read. And so I have to, so in terms of science fiction, I thought only the beginning chapters were useful in terms of science fiction, of such a heat wave that people would go into the water and they would slowly poach to death. That was science fiction. To me, there was sort of nothing else in the book that was really science fiction that really completely expanded and exploded my imagination. My biggest takeaway was the power of the international banking institutions in the economy. I thought that was very illuminating. I thought he fell into a typical trap of assigning individual responsibility. This banker, this banker, this banker, as opposed to, and I may be wrong about this, and I suppose if I woke up in the morning and thought about it again, I could say, no, that's not what it was. But I was often left with the impression that it was this banker, this banker, this banker, and the Chinese woman, the Ministry of Finance, and her smile, and somehow she was going to influence all these things, as opposed to institutions and systems, and that it was the international banking, and it was the 200 guys they wanted to shoot. The 200 guys they wanted to shoot out of the air, I thought, if that's the way this guy is advocating to solve all these problems, I just, he lost me there. I love the story part of it. I love the trek, the escape through the Alps. Another moment I was completely transfixed by was the woman from the refugee camp when she counted all the years that she had been in refugee camps. I was quite moved by that.
Yep.
Otherwise, I have to say I don't know, it didn't, I didn't feel like it moved me forward. Will it take beyond my lifetime? Yes, it will. I'm sorry that my grandson will inherit all these horrible things. I thought the ending was incredibly weak because I do not think the world is going to have a happy ending. And all that happiness and ring around the rosy at the end, I found very disappointing. So I don't know, does a science fiction writer, and does that person have something to say about all these issues? I really don't know. I mean, for me,
Does he have a right to say?
no, just for me personally. you know, for me, I've dabbled in science fiction, and to me, most of science fiction are morality tales. You know, a better world of this, good, bad. I don't know. I just didn't. I think I came to it with preconceived notions about what science fiction could tell me. And the first few chapters about being poached in the hot lake, that was science fiction. And beyond that, I didn't find it to be. So,
You don't, but you don't bend towards economics.
well, this economics didn't have anything to do with science fiction for me.
Well, but it had to do with the story.
But did the label of science fiction proscribe your ingestion of this book?
I'm sure it did in some ways. I'm sure it did. Yes.
That's too bad.
Yeah. And for a lot of the rest of it, I was disappointed that it seemed like
Been there, done that.
and maybe this is something I just don't want to believe, but maybe it is that there needs to be a war against whoever it is. But of course, whoever it is who is opposed to policies that could perhaps at least mitigate some of this damage or adapt to it. You know, a lot of those people are in our country. It's like, and
Certainly not all of them.
yeah. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, all of that sort of, does that help me understand? So a lot of my questioning throughout the entire book was, does this move me forward? Does this help me understand something? Does this open up my heart or mind about something about this? And it didn't really. And I'm sure that's, you know, I'm an oddball. I completely confess to that.
I appreciate your openness and your expression of your personal perception of what you perceived in the book. I found that identifying people to kill, there was shock value in that. And I thought that was kind of science fiction at first. And then when I started to think about it, I started to think about, how do you stop this path of self-destruction that we're on? And it's still something that there's shock value with, but it started me thinking about, for me, it's not only, I think that what we're starting to feel now with the wildfires and is fear for our well-being. But for me, we're losing species at a rate that's unprecedented. And it's not like, for me, war, where we went through periods of war and we came out the other side of periods of war, because we're losing our planet. We're losing the ecological systems that we depend on for life. It's no beginning and end of war unless there's some kind of shocking thing that happens that changes what's happening now. And that, yeah.
I totally agree with you, Kate. In the book somewhere is a short paragraph that talks about the one true tragedy is the extinction of a species.
Yeah.
And I think there's a very heightened awareness in this book. Let me back up for a sec. Is it okay if I come back in again? Because I had so much about this. Quick metaphor. Way back in 2005, when Sue Spofford and I started Sustainable San Rafael, we knew that what we needed to do was to move the policymakers to make the right choices. And what was the lever to do that, but to educate the people and bring them along to push. And so it was the middle down middle to get the policy to change, because we can all buy our electric cars and compost our food waste and reduce our consumption. But until there's policy that is focused on broad change in a short period of time, we will not be successful. And this is where I have to take some issue with you, Heather, and that is deep adaptation gave me permission to look at what I knew, what I know, and go, yeah, I don't have to hide that in the closet anymore. It's really out there. I can look at it and accept it and go, okay, what next? And so that's one side of it, and that's the more human side. But the other side of me is still the policy advocate. And I believe that it has to be in our lifetimes or shortly after our lifetimes, because the loss is too great. And unless drastic measures, Donella Meadows is a systems thinker. I don't know a lot about her, but one of the principles that she wrote about was, what is the best and most effective time to intervene in a system? Or how do you intervene in a system to change the momentum from instead of keep going the way you're going, which is what all this incremental shit is that we're doing, that our politicians are doing, our governments are doing, our corporation, all of that is incremental shit, and it's not going to result in what has to happen. So how do you intervene in the system? And that to me became the metaphor of if we can't convince the 200 people on the planet who are causing the deaths and destitution and suffering of hundreds of millions of people, if we can't convince them to change their ways, we can't incent them with carbon coins, we can't call them to task in the public, we can't, nothing of that is going to work, then we have no choice.
Honey, I'd be so happy to put a bullet through Cinema and that fucker, what's his name? I would be happy to put a bullet in their heads, Manchin and Cinema, because they to me are stopping policy changes that you're talking about. Sorry, but I'm like, I'm ready.
Well, that I could sympathize with the anger of Frank. You know, where he ended up taking that anger seemed overly extreme, but I feel that same sense of anger and sadness, but you know, for me it's we did have a period of improvement in the late 60s and early 70s when the change for the Clean Water Act and the Clean Air Act and the Endangered Species Act, and some of those policies now are how we, because there was a recognition and acceptance that it's not okay to, sort of like the tragedy of the commons, where just because it's easier for you to dump in the creek or the stream that's running by the industrial plant or something, that
more profitable.
more profitable, more profitable. Just, I mean, there are hopeful things in history, but I just, they do feel powerless sometimes. And I think that when I look at those times that I feel like I can't give up hope and I can't stop caring, or, you know, I feel sometimes very tired from all of this, as I feel like we probably all do. But anyway, it just, I don't think that we can give up. It's depressing and it's so hard and exhausting. Virginia and everything else, it's just exhausting.
But hold on, please don't misunderstand. I'm not saying give up. I'm saying I'm understanding that I have to keep working, have to. But what I'm hoping to see, the policy changes, you know, the systemic changes, Kiki, you're talking about, which have to happen, realistically are not going to happen in my lifetime, because I'm up against cinema, I'm up against Mansion, but I can't stop working. But realistically, I've got, you know, my shelf life is getting really short, really fast. And those guys are going to be in power for, so I don't mean to come across as I'm giving up at all.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be discouraged by looking at a cinema and Mansion and saying, you know, the Republicans are smarter than the Democrats. They're more clever. They put cinema and Mansion in as Democrats, and they're not. So that's all I was saying, was like, it helps take the pressure off me to think I've got to go out and shoot cinema and Mansion, which I would of course never do.
Well, yeah, I would never do it.
Systems aren't going to change. I mean, systems will change, and Kate's completely correct. Systems will change. They're just not going to change in this, you know, in time for me. But if we can, sorry, that's.
Well, can I also say that the problem I see with that approach of killing these 200 people is there will be 200 more people who will take their places.
Yeah.
And it's not individuals who are our problem. It's systems. It's these interlocking banks with governments and corporations and worldwide nonprofits that do the wrong thing constantly. So it's, you know, that was a problem for me. So,
But it's not that was occurring in a silo. At the same time as that was occurring, this groundswell of grassroots activism was also occurring under the umbrella of some organized principle of carbon reduction. The economic system was being persuaded by its own best interest to stop burning fossil fuels because of the guaranteed return and the guaranteed value of the carbon coin. And so none of those things in isolation is going to get us anywhere. But until there is some radical shift, the incremental things that you and I never want to forget the power of you all. I don't mean the general marine community. I mean, you individual people, your knowledge, your passion, your commitment, your righteousness to make things happen. And we all have our different paths of making things happen. And part of it is planting seeds. And some of the seeds that are I notice in myself that I like, that I plant, are those ideas that help to shift the direction of things. We've got to be able to look at things in a different way. And it hurts me to think that, to recognize my granddaughter, who's 4 years old, is going to be inheriting this shit.
Yeah.
And little me, fat mouth me, no matter how much I yell and scream and bang my shoe on the table, it's not going to do anything. But together, power and the conviction that we don't have many lifetimes to make this change. Because as Kate said, the extinctions that are occurring around us are going to make, by the time we wake up on the normal path that we're on, it's going to be too late. So something radical has to shift. And I don't want to focus too much on this thing about killing 200 people. That's not the point. The point is, as I was trying to say, how do we interrupt the system in a way that is going to move the momentum, change the direction?
That's a good question. Yeah.
Can I ask, I have not been following COP26 closely. Is anything coming out of COP26 that's radical, new? Has anyone been following super closely?
Blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah.
Same
I
stuff.
feel like Frank, and he was like, when he had her in the room, and he's like, you people are talking and doing nothing. And I was like, that sounds like COP26 to me.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not enough.
The,
What you're, and
the,
she says, but we're doing this, we're doing that. And he
Yeah.
says, it's not enough. It's not enough.
America and China had a new policy together.
Yeah, David is just telling me that America and China created a new policy agreement today, and I haven't had a
You're
chance to
kidding.
look it up. David, do you know what it is?
No.
We have to, so as our hope, our hopeful takeaway, maybe part of it from this meeting might be to go find out what that is and put some energy into it, at least mental, emotional energy.
Another thing that's been hard for me is I'm just so tired of all the for lack of a better word, the shitting on other people, the targeting of people who and making everything really personal, whether it's anti-vaccines or whatever it is. I think we have to, as opposed to the book, instead of targeting individuals and making it personal, we have to target the action or the activity that is wrong, and identify how we change that and take the people out of it, because I do feel there's going to be another Kristen, another Mansion, and another Cinnamon.
Oh, yeah.
Every time we turn around, there's going to be another one of those people. And I think it sort of is, for me, it feels better when it's not, when there can't be hate around it. Like it's exhausting to me to feel so much anger that there's hate or identifying it with people. I would rather identify with what needs to change, sort of on a, policy or system basis. I agree, but I think emotionally and psychologically, taking that power out of it, in terms that emotional power out of blaming individuals. I do it. So I'm talking to myself. I feel anger and I want to target somebody with that anger. And that is turning out for me to be emotionally and psychologically exhausting.
Yeah, you're right.
And I find it a lot easier when I try to back away from that. For some reason, I don't really know how to describe it.
Well, because it's not Mansion and it's not cinema, it's the pharmaceutical industry, it's the coal industry. They'll buy whoever, it's not Mansion. You're right. They'll be the next fool who comes along. Kiki, sorry.
Katie, what were you going to say?
Oh, Katie.
Oh, no, it wasn't me. I wasn't.
Okay.
Nan-
Yeah, Nancy.
Well, I guess on a different level, what gets to me these days is the rule of law has gone out the window, and people can just say, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't care if it's against the law, and they're getting away with it. Mary, how do you feel about this whole situation with our judicial system and such, and what's going on with I know it's politics, a lot of it, but I am just appalled at how these people are just disregarding the rule of law and getting away with it. I just, I throw up my hands. I don't get it. Maybe because I'm such a goody two shoes and I always follow the rules. It doesn't occur to me to not follow the rules. So these people who not only do they not follow the rules, they're not following really big, important rules, and they're getting away with it. Maybe I'm angry because I don't get away with it. Why should they?
Because you don't try.
I mean, yeah, I mean, we say Bruce has a much bigger envelope of tolerance, not tolerance, but of like, if there's a sign that says do not enter, to me means don't enter. And Bruce is like, hey, let's go in there. That's not where I come from. So I don't get that. Hey, let's go in there. Don't you see what the sign says?
I see it on the street, like just, people will stop at a red light and then they'll go through it. I mean, it's funny how it's permeated just in all these different ways from little to big.
Bless you.
Well, and this whole thing on January 6th, I mean,
Oh,
how can you not say that this was totally against the law? And these people are just, like so empowered to feel they can do what they want to do. They can say what they want to say and they'll be okay. And so far, many are.
Have been.
It's just appalling.
And yet the inciter in chief is still at large.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So should we pull ourselves back to it's almost 8 o'clock. Should we pull ourselves back to the book and back to what we do? And Kiki, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I feel like the fucking Grim Reaper. But this is a hopeful book. It's a hopeful book.
It is. I agree.
Well, I think it may have been Heather who said, or one of you said something about, we have to see what's possible. There has to be a vision so that we can forge a path to a future that we choose instead of the future that we're going to get if we don't do anything. Yeah. And so I think that what this book did for me is it gave me hope in the human spirit and hope in the capacity of vision and trust, and in even the potential of institutions to adapt, as Nancy said, to bring us to a place where we can do what's right for everyone and for the planet. The planet is so, not the planet, for all the living things on the planet and for the systems that support our lives. So it gave me hope. I just was thrilled reading all of the different activities and programs and projects and undertakings. And if you do nothing else, find that chapter and read it, because it'll make you feel really good.
It's around chapter 100, something.
Can I give you one piece of really, really bad news that we heard today? I love your hope. So we are in discussions. We have this group that are very connected to Burma, Myanmar, because we've been there a lot. Do you know who's selling weapons to the junta? Israel.
Oh, fuck.
Russia and Israel. It's like, oh, we're really screwed. It's like, we are really a system. I'm sorry, I just had to share that because I'm like, wow, they're arms dealers.
Yeah, you want to pinpoint a system that is the death knell for the world. It's
Yep.
arms dealers, the
Mhm.
manufacturers, the under the cover, money laundering, dirty deal people.
Sorry, I
I appreciate that.
I don't want to end on that shitty note, but it's a like,
Yeah.
really?
How do you just take it? I mean, I can't create the analogy for arms right now. I'd have to think about it a lot, but think about kicking this whole notion upstairs of if we change the incentives, if we make what we might consider the natural greed, gluttony, whatever, one of the 7 sins, right? If we satisfy that by doing something good, like carbon coins, we're going to not profit from burning it. We're going to profit by not burning it.
Right.
We're going to profit by sequestering it and not releasing it.
I think we have a better chance of doing that stuff than stopping arms dealers.
Quite frankly, I think that so no one said who the 200 people were, but I think that if you put up the 200 people on a screen and put up the weapons manufacturers and dealers on the screen,
It'd pretty much
there'd
the
be a
same people.
huge overcross.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so sorry for that diversion.
Okay,
I just had to let it go.
Oh, that's good.
Shall we talk about
On
the
you
next
guys.
book?
I wanted to say one more thing.
Yeah.
I think if I heard this something on the radio about some bird populations and about abundance. And when there's abundance and there's enough for all of the birds to eat and make their nests, there's enough energy to produce viable eggs and all of that. When there's not enough vegetation or seed or whatever, they have to spend all of their time looking for there's a lot more competition. It creates a different life for the birds. And I started thinking about abundance in terms of people. And I don't know if it would, that if we could all just have enough of the things that we needed in order to have a good life, and it was that way, that would there be people that needed to be on the black market or selling arms or having more than they need? And I don't know, I want to get to a place where it feels like we have enough, and that other species can have enough, and but maybe we can never be there because of the way the world works and populations and things like that.
Did you get to the part in the book about the 2000 watt society?
No.
Oh, yeah, that was,
It's there's calculations about the amount of energy and the amount of whatever we need that is available on the planet. And there's a group in Switzerland that has live at the
I think I did.
society. So I don't have the calculations at hand, but you can take public transportation, eat mostly all the stuff we know, eat mostly vegetarian. And there is more than enough for everyone on the planet to live an adequate and abundant life.
I've heard this.
Within the 2000 watt scenario, if we would not hoard, if we would not
Right.
more than our share, just as you were saying, Kate. So that's another hopeful part. Find a way to index the book and get to that part so you can read it, because that will also make you feel hopeful.
Thank you, Kiki. Thank you, Kate.
Yeah.
Nancy?
So what do we do next? Where do we go from here?
I don't know.
So I personally would like to read something slightly different. And I'm going to propose a book called How the Word is Passed by Clint Smith. He sort of goes on a tour of the country of monuments and landmarks
Mm.
that are about the South, about slavery, about not. He goes to Monticello. He goes to the Whitney Plantation. If you've ever been in New Orleans, that's a fabulous place to visit. And it's about the legacy of slavery and the imprint on people today. So that's my suggestion.
How long is it? Is it
283 pages.
800?
No, 283 pages.
And it is 283 pages. That's under 300. That's perfect. And it is, you can get it on audio.
And it's 10
Okay.
hours and 7 minutes on the audio.
Oh,
Oh.
God, girls,
If
you.
you speed it up, it's even faster.
So I just also want to mention that Louise had suggested in an earlier email chain that this book called Finding the Mother Tree
Finding the Mother Tree, yeah.
by Bard. So let's put that on the list as well. But
That's come highly recommended.
Yeah.
Yeah. as well. But the Clint Smith book was also on my list. I haven't read it yet. I'm open to whatever. How do we make this decision? We put it out to the group on email or take a vote?
I guess, put it out to the group. I'm just Finding the Mother Tree, is that what it is?
I believe so. The
Yeah.
author is Simard, Simard.
Yep, got it.
It's 100 more pages, though. It's 383.
Okay.
And
It
it's
has-
12 hours
We
and
gotta
13
start setting,
minutes.
we have to start setting page limits.
Yeah, I'm needing something.
What do you need, Kate?
I just need something spiritual about abundance. You know, I just feel like I need something grounding and loving and you know, I feel a little bit about it's all true and it's a reckoning, a period of reckoning. But I'm kind of hating human nature right now.
Well, Finding the Mother Tree
it's-
sounds like it's more in line with nurturing and
Do you have a book in mind, Kate?
No, I came across something a while back and I can't remember what it was, but
Do you want a little bit of time to throw something out? I mean, I don't know. that you-
no, I mean, I can at another time. I'm open to reading both of these books,
I
either
don't know
one.
that you've ever picked us a book.
I did pick a book and Vicky nixed it right off the bat.
So you haven't picked us a book.
We don't have to worry about that anymore.
So it was too long, I think is why.
300 pages.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel
What was the book?
I want to at some point connect over not that we shouldn't be reading these things, but I just feel the need to connect over something positive that we share. And even though I appreciate this book and the storyline and stuff, the topic that I just feel like we've done a lot of reading on things that about, I don't know, socially and environmentally feeling pretty bad about. I think Kim had expressed that at some point too, and at that point I wasn't feeling it as much, but lately it's feeling that way. I'm totally open to reading how the word is passed. And
What
you
was the
know,
book that Vicky nixed? Do you remember?
it was it was about water, and it was sort of a follow-up to Cadillac Desert, but it was more of a Central Valley. I think water is a big issue, but it's just another environmental book.
Another.
I'm happy to read how the word is passed. I do I missed the last social, so I didn't experience that, but I feel like I need to be connected on some
Yeah.
things that are a little happier, or not happier, but just a better feeling about humanity
Yeah.
and our
And-
connection to nature as well. I feel like I need a trip to Green Gulch
Yeah.
and a walk around the grounds or something, or being by the creek and seeing the restoration, or those are the kinds of things that are, anyway.
Well, when is our next meeting is going to be a social meeting, right?
I think, yeah, that would be
Because we're
December.
alternating a book. We're going to meet is that right? We're going to meet every month, but
Yeah.
okay.
So
So our
December,
next meeting will be social at least.
right.
So, and do we think that we could possibly meet in person in December?
So
Not me.
I'm not going to, and here's why, because it will be dark at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
And I don't want to drive all the way home, and I don't want you to drive all the way home in the dark. So,
Yeah, that's.
and I am happy to, otherwise I would be happy to meet in person. I don't have anything against that at all.
I'm assuming we're all vaccinated.
Yeah,
at the
I'm assuming
beginning
everyone is vaccinated.
Mhm.
and boosted and
I've got one shot, and I'm hoping to get my second in December. I won't go into the medical details, but yeah, that's right off the bat why I wouldn't meet.
Booster, you have to be 65 right now, don't you?
oh, that's right. Sorry, ladies.
No.
Sorry.
I'm 2 weeks,
To the children in the group.
yeah, I'm 2 weeks past my booster as of today.
Yeah.
I'm scheduled for my booster, but actually they've opened up boosters to everyone over 18.
Really?
Yeah.
doing?
I didn't know that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when should let's do our social meeting.
Yeah.
And pick a date and make sure that Louise gets it right and we get it right.
Louise didn't get it wrong. I did.
Yeah,
so
well, thank you, Nancy, for doing the work.
Screwing it up.
Mm.
So what would that be? The second Wednesday? Is that what we've been doing?
Yeah, how's December 8th?
December 8th?
Works for me.
Works for me.
That's good.
Okay.
And
I'm gonna-
maybe we'll come with some book suggestions then. How about that?
Yeah,
No, I'm not. I hope that other people, I'm happy to read. I think we should just choose one and read how the word is passed. And then we can, when Louise and Kim and the others join us, we could read Finding the Mother Tree.
Okay,
What do you guys think about that?
Sure.
sure.
yeah, that
So,
works. Yeah.
Okay.
Kiki, thank you for proposing this audacious book.
Well, I kept trying to warn you all that it was tough.
No, you did. You
long,
did.
Yeah.
But I think the synergy of COP26 has been incredible.
Really
I
interesting.
do too. Yeah.
And maybe it will in some way empower us to our local grassroots work and also continue the big push.
System change.
Divert
This
Divert-
system.
comment.
A
Well,
little
thank
note
you for-
about a note about our social last month. So it was Katie, Kiki, me, and Louise. And it was great. We, with
Really
just
was.
the four of us, we took time to tell each other about what we did before we knew each other.
Ah,
And it was very insightful. Did you know Louise speaks Russian?
no.
Wow.
Big into Russia. She wanted to be a diplomat. It was great. So
heard her.
you say feeling more connected, Kate, and I think that's part of what helps is having some time to just talk about who we are and how we got to be who we are, and because we don't know each other past, the forum.
Isn't
We were
that
all
funny?
born in 2010.
And I feel I know you guys so well and I feel so close to you. Okay, everyone show up next time with their resumes
Yeah, right.
And they're martinis.
and their martinis. So wonderful to see you guys.
Bye,
Yeah.
guys.
Happy
Bye.
Thanksgiving.
Wait,
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Wait, who's gonna put out the email to announce that the date? I'm not gonna do it.
You are, Nancy.
All right, I'll do it.
No.
Okay, I'll do it. And I think what I'm saying is December 8th, 6:30 Zoom.
Uh-huh.
It's a social, but the book we've picked to read then in the January meeting is How the Word is Passed. Is that,
Right.
did
Yeah.
That's good.
I get it?
Yep.
And don't let on what a baleful discussion this has been.
Hey,
We
it's
don't
all
have to because
recorded. It's all
it's been
recorded.
recorded.
I'm stopping the recording.